Some stories find us when we need them most, like an old friend showing up at your door with coffee and wisdom. This tale comes from the heart of Tanzania, where the ancient rhythms of the savannah still echo with lessons our modern world has forgotten. It's about a veterinarian named Malik Okoro, whose simple act of mercy toward a trapped lion would test everything he believed about right and wrong. In our hurried world, we sometimes forget that kindness can be dangerous, that doing good doesn't always lead to good outcomes, and that the hardest battles are often fought not with weapons, but within the chambers of our own hearts. This is a story for those who remember when character mattered more than convenience, when a man's word was his bond, and when even the wildest creatures could teach us something about loyalty. What happened at that rescue station would challenge everything Malik thought he knew about justice, forgiveness, and the mysterious ways that grace can return to us when we least expect it. Malik's hands shook as the flashlight beam cut through the darkness of the pit, 6 feet down. Golden eyes stared back at him not with rage, but with something far more unsettling: acceptance. The male lion lay crumpled against the earthen wall, his massive frame reduced to labored breathing and the occasional twitch of his tail. The steel trap had bitten deep into his right hind leg, dried blood crusting the golden fur in dark patches. From the claw marks gouged into the pit walls, Malik could tell the poor creature had fought for days. "How long you reckon he's been down there?" James whispered from above. Malik studied the scrape marks, the way the lion's ribs showed through his coat. 3 days, maybe 4. The lion raised his head slightly, those amber eyes tracking Malik's every movement. No growl rumbled from his throat, no display of dominance or threat, just waiting. "The poachers left him," Malik said, his voice tight with anger. "They'll be back at dawn for the hide." From somewhere in the distance came the low rumble of diesel engines. James's grip tightened on the rope. "Malik, we need to get ourselves out of here. Now!" But Malik found himself unable to move, caught by that steady golden gaze. In 20 years of veterinary work, he'd never seen anything like it. This wasn't the look of a predator. This was the look of something that had already made peace with dying. The engine sounds grew closer. "Lower the equipment," Malik said quietly. "What? The tranquilizer gun? The medical kit? Lower them down." "Malik, that's a full-grown lion. 200 pounds of—" "I know what it is." Malik reached for the rope. "And I know what I have to do." The engines were close enough now that they could see headlights bouncing through the acacia trees. James grabbed Malik's shoulder. "They'll kill us both." Malik looked up at his partner's face, seeing his own fear reflected there. 23 years old, Cambridge educated. James had given up a comfortable practice in London to work at their little rescue station in the middle of nowhere. He didn't deserve to die for Malik's conscience. "Drive back to the station," Malik said. "Call the authorities. I'm not leaving you. One of us needs to survive to tell this story." Malik swung his leg over the rope. "Go." The sound of James's Land Rover starting up, then fading into the night, left Malik alone with the lion and the approaching poachers. He had maybe 5 minutes before they arrived. 5 minutes to tranquilize a wild predator, cut through a steel trap, and somehow escape with both their lives. The lion watched him descend, those golden eyes never blinking. "Easy there, friend." Malik whispered in Swahili, "I'm here to help." When his boots touched the bottom of the pit, the lion's muscles tensed slightly, but he didn't attempt to rise. Up close, Malik could see the full extent of the damage. The trap had nearly severed the leg. Without immediate surgery, the animal would be dead within hours anyway. Malik raised the tranquilizer gun with steady hands. "Forgive me for what I'm about to do." The dart struck the lion's shoulder. For a moment, those amber eyes held his, and in them, Malik saw something that would haunt him for months to come. Trust. Before we continue, I'd love to know which city you're watching from. Let's get back to the story. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Malik pressed his back against the earthen wall of the pit. His shirt soaked through with sweat despite the cool night air. The unconscious lion's breathing had steadied the tranquilizer, working exactly as it should. Blood from the animal's wound seeped through the bandages, staining the dirt beneath them dark. Footsteps crunched on dry grass above. A voice called down in English with a crisp British accent, "Dr. Okoro. Are you injured?" Malik recognized the voice immediately. Ranger Captain Williams, a man who'd served 20 years in the Kenya Wildlife Service before transferring to Tanzania. His timing couldn't have been more perfect, or more suspicious. "I'm fine," Malik called back. "The lion needs immediate surgery." "How long has it been tranquilized?" Malik checked his watch. The numbers blurred slightly in his vision, adrenaline still coursing through his system. 8 minutes? Maybe 9? Williams appeared at the edge of the pit, his weathered face grim in the flashlight beam. 2 younger rangers flanked him, both carrying heavy-duty ropes and a portable winch system. "We'll have you both up in 10 minutes. The efficiency struck Malik as odd. Rangers typically traveled light, yet Williams had brought exactly the equipment needed for a large animal extraction. "How did you know what to bring?" "Your partner called ahead with details." Williams gestured to his men, who began setting up the winch. "Said you were attempting a lion rescue." Something cold settled in Malik's stomach. James had driven away before seeing the lion's condition, before knowing they'd need heavy extraction equipment. The call to Rangers should have been a simple request for backup, nothing more. The winch motor hummed to life above. One of the young Rangers rappelled down with a cargo net, his movements practiced and smooth, too practiced for a routine wildlife call. "First time working with Dr. Okoro," Malik asked the young man as they positioned the net under the lion's unconscious form. The ranger avoided his eyes. "No, sir. We've been tracking this particular animal for some time." The words hit Malik like a physical blow. "Tracking him. Troublesome lion. Sir, been terrorizing livestock in 3 different districts." The ranger secured the net with quick, efficient knots. "Orders came down yesterday to shoot on sight." Malik's hands went numb. Above them, Williams called down, "Ready for extraction." The lion's massive head lolled to one side as the winch began to lift, in the harsh glare of the flashlights. Malik could see a small notch in the animal's left ear, an old wound, probably from another trap or territorial fight. Distinctive enough for rangers to identify from a distance. They hadn't come to rescue a lion. They'd come to collect a condemned one. And somehow, James had known exactly which lion they'd find in this pit. Malik unlocked the medical facility while James maneuvered the transport cage through the doorway. The lion remained standing, amber eyes tracking their every movement. Its injured leg trembled from the effort of bearing weight, but it refused to lie down. "Examination table or floor surgery?" James asked, sweat beading on his forehead despite the building's shade. "Table. I want proper lighting." Malik switched on the overhead surgical lamp, its harsh white beam illuminating steel surfaces and glass cabinets lined with medical supplies. The familiar smell of disinfectant filled the space. James prepared the reversal agent for the tranquilizer in a fresh syringe. "How much do you want to give him?" "None." Malik pulled on surgical gloves, the latex snapping against his wrists. "I'm operating with him conscious. That's downright dangerous. He could kill you." "Look at him." Malik nodded toward the cage. The lion sat now, favoring its injured leg, but its breathing remained calm and controlled. "Does he look like he wants to kill me?" James loaded the syringe anyway. Animals in pain are unpredictable. The cage door opened with a metallic clang that echoed through the small building. Malik stepped back, giving the lion space to emerge. For several seconds, neither man nor animal moved. The lion limped forward onto the concrete floor, each step deliberate and careful. When it reached the center of the room, it stopped and looked directly at Malik. Not a challenge or threat, more like a question. "Easy there, friend," Malik whispered in Swahili. He moved slowly to the supply cabinet, withdrawing gauze, antiseptic, and suture materials. His hands shook slightly as he laid out the instruments. James positioned himself near the examination table, syringe ready. "Malik, this is pure foolishness." The lion turned its head toward the sound of James's voice, ears flicking forward attentively. Then it looked back at Malik and took 3 limping steps toward the examination table. "He wants up there," Malik breathed. "Lions don't want anything except food and territory." But the lion had positioned itself alongside the metal table, its good front paw lifted slightly as if testing the height. When Malik approached with a small step stool, the animal didn't retreat or tense. It waited. Malik placed the step stool against the table. The lion studied it for a moment, then carefully placed its front paws on the stool and hauled itself up onto the examination surface. The metal table groaned under its weight but held. Good heavens! James lowered the syringe. "I've never seen anything like this." The lion settled onto its side, extending the injured leg for examination. Blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage Malik had applied in the pit, but the bleeding had mostly stopped. The animal's breathing remained steady, yellow eyes fixed on Malik's face. Malik began cutting away the blood-soaked gauze. Each snip of the scissors made the lion's ear twitch, but it didn't move. The wound beneath was worse than he'd initially assessed. The trap had crushed muscle and tendon, coming within millimeters of the main artery. "This needs at least 40 sutures," Malik murmured, probing gently around the wound edges. The lion's body tensed slightly at his touch but remained still. "Local anesthetic," James suggested. "He'll feel the injection needle more than the suturing." Malik threaded surgical thread through a curved needle. His hands had stopped shaking. "Animals handle pain differently than we do." The first suture went in smoothly. The lion's muscles rippled under its golden fur, but it made no sound. Malik worked steadily, closing the deepest part of the wound first, then layering smaller sutures to align the skin edges properly. 20 minutes into the surgery, footsteps approached the building, heavy boots on gravel, moving with military precision. James looked up from where he'd been monitoring the lion's vitals. "Expecting someone?" he asked. The footsteps stopped outside the door, a knock, firm and authoritative. Williams's voice called through the metal sheeting, "Dr. Okoro, we need to speak with you." Malik continued suturing. "I'm in the middle of surgery." "It's urgent." The lion's head lifted slightly at the sound of the unfamiliar voice. Its nostrils flared, scenting the air. Something in its posture changed, not fear exactly, but heightened alertness. 5 minutes, Malik called back, not looking up from his work. Williams tried the door handle. Locked. "Dr. Okoro, please open the door." James moved toward the entrance, but the lion's low growl stopped him mid-step. Not aggressive, more like a warning. The animal's golden eyes had fixed on the door with laser intensity. "He doesn't like Williams," James observed quietly. "Animals can sense things we can't." Malik placed the final suture and began cleaning around the wound. "Fear, aggression, intent." The door handle rattled more insistently. "Dr. Okoro, this concerns the safety of your staff." The lion rose to its feet on the examination table, balancing carefully on 3 legs, its massive head turned toward the door, lips pulling back slightly to reveal the tips of white fangs. Still no sound, but every muscle in its body had gone taut. Malik looked up from bandaging the wound. Through the small window beside the door, he could see Williams standing with 2 rangers he didn't recognize. All 3 men carried rifles. "James," he said quietly, "what exactly did you tell Williams about this lion?" James's face had gone pale. Standard report. Location found. Condition assessment. Recommendation for medical treatment. Nothing about its behavior. Nothing about how it responded to me in the pit. No. Why would... James stopped. His eyes widened as understanding dawned. Oh, Lord. The lion had moved to stand between Malik and the door, its injured leg tucked up but its body positioned like a barrier, protecting rather than threatening. William's voice came again, sharper now. Dr. Okoro, we have reports of unusual animal behavior in this area. For your safety, we need to examine the lion immediately. Malik's blood went cold. Through the window, he watched William signal to one of the rangers, who moved around toward the building's rear exit. They weren't here for safety checks. They were here to finish what they'd started. Malik stepped to the rear door and threw the deadbolt home. The heavy metal clang echoed through the building, through the back window. He watched the second ranger circle around, rifle at the ready. Boots scraped against gravel as the man took position 15 feet from the building's rear exit. Dr. Okoro, Williams called through the front door, his voice losing its professional courtesy. Open this door immediately. The lion descended from the examination table with careful precision, favoring its bandaged leg but moving with renewed strength. It positioned itself directly in the center of the room, equidistant from both doors, amber eyes fixed on the front entrance where Williams waited. James grabbed Malik's arm. We need to let them in. This is pure foolishness. Look at him. Malik nodded toward the lion. The animal's ears were flattened against its skull, not in fear, but in focused attention. Every muscle in its powerful frame had coiled tight, ready to spring. He knows they're not here to help. It's an animal. It doesn't know anything. Then why is he protecting us instead of trying to escape? The question hung between them as Williams's voice rose outside. Final warning. Doctor, open the door or we'll breach it. Malik moved to the supply cabinet and began pulling out veterinary equipment scalpels, syringes, bottles of sedative. His hands worked steadily, muscle memory taking over as adrenaline sharpened his focus. How long have you been reporting to them? 3 months. James's voice cracked. They approached me in Dar es Salaam, said they needed inside information on troublesome animals. And you believed that... They showed me documentation, official Wildlife Service credentials. They said independent vets like you sometimes get emotionally attached to dangerous animals. James wiped sweat from his forehead. They said it was for public safety. A metallic scraping sound came from the front door, someone working on the lock mechanism. The lion's head turned toward the sound, lips pulling back to reveal the tips of white canine teeth. Still no growl, but the threat was unmistakable. 5 minutes, Malik called back. Not looking up from his work, Williams tried the door handle. Locked. Dr. Okoro, please open the door. James moved toward the entrance, but the lion's low growl stopped him mid-step. Not aggressive, more like a warning. The animal's golden eyes had fixed on the door with laser intensity. He doesn't like Williams, James observed quietly. Animals can sense things we can't. Malik filled a large syringe with concentrated tranquilizer, enough to drop a full-grown elephant. Fear, aggression, intent. The door handle rattled more insistently. Dr. Okoro, this concerns the safety of your staff. The lion rose to its feet on the examination table, balancing carefully on 3 legs. Its massive head turned toward the door, lips pulling back slightly to reveal white fangs. Still no sound, but every muscle in its body had gone taut. Malik looked up from bandaging supplies. Through the small window beside the door, he could see William standing with 2 rangers he didn't recognize. All 3 men carried rifles. James, he said quietly. What exactly did you tell Williams about this lion? James's face had gone pale. Standard report, location found, condition assessment, recommendation for medical treatment. Nothing about its behavior, Nothing about how it responded to me in the pit. No. Why would James stopped? His eyes widened as understanding dawned. Mercy me. The lion had moved to stand between Malik and the door, its injured leg tucked up but its body positioned like a living shield, protecting rather than threatening. William's voice came again, sharper now. Dr. Okoro, we have reports of unusual animal behavior in this area. For your safety, we need to examine the lion immediately. Malik's blood went cold. Through the window, he watched William signal to one of the rangers, who moved around toward the building's rear exit. They weren't here for safety checks. The lion sensed the weapon's focus immediately. Its muscles bunched, preparing to launch itself across the 10-foot distance. But instead of attacking Williams directly, it moved sideways, placing itself squarely between any threat and Malik. What exactly did they ask you to do? James? Malik's voice came out steady despite the rifles aimed at the building. James raised trembling hands. Monitor the animal's recovery, report on its behavior patterns, make recommendations about relocation. James? Malik turned to face his partner directly. What were you really supposed to do? The front door lock clicked. William stepped halfway inside, rifle raised but not quite pointed at them. Behind him, the other ranger remained positioned at the threshold, weapon ready. Dr. Okoro, step away from the animal. But the lion had positioned itself like a golden wall between them, its amber eyes fixed on Williams with deadly intent. And that's when Malik realized James was still holding the syringe filled with enough tranquilizer to stop a heart. Malik lunged forward and grabbed James's wrist before the syringe could reach the lion's flank. The needle glinted under the surgical lights as they struggled, James trying to pull away while Malik's fingers dug into his partner's forearm. Don't do this, Malik hissed through gritted teeth. The lion remained motionless between them and Williams, its massive head tracking every movement in the room. The animal's breathing had quickened, but it made no sound beyond the soft pad of its paws on concrete as it adjusted its position. Williams took another step forward, rifle stock tight against his shoulder. Dr. Mitchell, inject the animal now. I can't. Malik won't let me. Then step back. The command carried the weight of finality. Williams's finger moved inside the trigger guard. At this distance, the rifle shot would punch through the lion's chest and likely hit Malik as well. James wrenched his arm free and stumbled backward, the syringe still clutched in his trembling hand. Malik found himself standing beside the lion, close enough to feel the heat radiating from its golden fur. The animal's scent filled his nostrils wild, musky, tinged with the metallic smell of dried blood from its wounds. Last chance. Doctor, William said. Move away from the animal. The lion shifted its weight, muscles coiling beneath its hide. Its amber eyes never left William's face. But Malik caught the subtle change in its posture. The animal was preparing to attack, injured leg or not. He's not a troublesome lion, Malik said, his voice steady despite the rifle aimed at his chest. You know it and I know it. The documentation says otherwise. What documentation? Show me the livestock kills. Show me the witness reports. Williams's grip tightened on his weapon. That's classified information. Because it doesn't exist. The pieces fell into place in Malik's mind with crystalline clarity. There is no troublesome lion. There never was. The ranger at the door shifted his weight, boots scraping on concrete, through the back window. Malik could see the second man moving closer to the building, rifle ready. Then why are we here? James asked, his voice barely a whisper. Because someone wants this specific lion dead. Malik kept his eyes on Williams. The question is why? The lion took one careful step toward Williams, then another, not stalking more like walking with purpose. The ranger captain's finger found the trigger, but something in the animal's approach seemed to give him pause. Williams spoke without lowering his rifle. Dr. Mitchell, prepare the injection. This ends now. But James had backed against the supply cabinet, syringe dangling from nerveless fingers. Sweat poured down his face, soaking the collar of his shirt. "I can't do it. Williams, look at him. Just look at him." The lion had stopped 3 feet from the rifle barrel, well within lunging distance. But instead of crouching to attack, it sat down. The movement was deliberate, controlled a conscious choice to make itself less threatening while still maintaining its position between the weapon and Malik. "What's it doing?" the ranger at the door muttered. Williams' rifle wavered slightly. In the harsh surgical lighting, the lion's amber eyes seemed almost luminous as they fixed on his face. The animal's breathing remained calm and controlled. No signs of aggression or panic. "Shoot it," the ranger urged. "Williams, just shoot it." But Williams hesitated. Something in the lion's behavior had clearly unsettled him. The animal sat like a well-trained dog, alert but non-threatening, bandaged leg tucked carefully beneath its body. Malik sensed the moment of uncertainty. "You can't kill him in cold blood, not when he's behaving like this." "It's an animal," Williams said, but his voice lacked conviction. "So why haven't you pulled the trigger?" The question hung in the air between them. The lion remained seated, golden gaze moving slowly from Williams to the ranger at the door, then back to Williams, like it was assessing threats and making calculated decisions. James let the syringe slip from his fingers. It hit the concrete floor with a sharp crack, the glass vial shattering and sending sedative spreading in a clear puddle. "There," he said, his voice hollow. "It's done." Williams glanced at the broken syringe, then back at the lion. "There are other ways to handle dangerous animals, such as capture and relocation to a secure facility." The words carried an ominous undertone. Malik had heard rumors about certain research facilities where wild animals disappeared permanently. Not death, exactly, but something arguably worse. "What kind of facility?" he asked. Williams lowered his rifle slightly. "That's not your concern." The lion rose to its feet with fluid grace, the movement sudden enough to make both rangers tense, but instead of advancing, it turned and walked slowly back toward Malik, positioning itself at his side like a trained guardian. The sight of this massive predator choosing to stand beside a human, injured and vulnerable, yet clearly protective, created a moment of profound stillness in the room. Williams raised his rifle again, aiming at the lion's head. "Final warning. Step away from the animal, or I shoot both of you." That's when Malik heard the distant sound of approaching vehicles, multiple engines, coming fast across the rough terrain. Not the smooth hum of ranger vehicles, but the deeper growl of military transport. Williams heard it too. His eyes flicked toward the window, and for the first time since entering the building, uncertainty flickered across his face. The lion's ears perked forward, and its nostrils flared as it scented the air. Whatever was coming, the animal recognized it, and from its sudden alertness, Malik realized it wasn't more rangers approaching the veterinary station. The vehicles pulled up outside in a cloud of dust and diesel fumes. Heavy doors slammed shut. Boots marched across gravel in military formation. Williams's face drained of color as he recognized the sound. "Who did you call?" he demanded, swinging his rifle toward Malik. "Nobody." Through the front window, Malik caught sight of olive-green uniforms and red berets. Tanzanian military, not wildlife rangers. A sergeant barked orders in Swahili, positioning men around the perimeter of the building. Williams spoke rapidly into his radio in a language Malik didn't recognize, not Swahili or English. The response crackled back harsh and guttural. Williams' grip tightened on his weapon. "Dr. Okoro," a voice called from outside in accented English. "This is Colonel Mwalimu, Tanzanian Defense Forces. Please exit the building with your hands visible." The lion rose to its feet, every muscle tense. Its nostrils flared repeatedly, scenting something that made its lips curl back slightly. Not at the humans in the room, but at whatever waited outside. Williams gestured to his partner at the door. "Back exit. Move." The ranger turned toward the rear of the building, but froze when he reached the window. "Sir, we've got soldiers out there too. At least 6 of them." "Impossible. They couldn't have coordinated that quickly." James wiped his palms on his pants, leaving damp streaks on the fabric. "Malik, what's happening?" "I don't know." But the sick feeling in Malik's stomach told him this was far worse than a simple wildlife management dispute. The military didn't deploy full squads for veterinary emergencies. Colonel Mwalimu's voice came again. "Dr. Okoro, you have 60 seconds to exit the building. After that, we enter." Williams raised his rifle toward the lion again. "This ends now." But the animal moved before Williams could sight properly, not attacking, retreating toward the supply cabinets along the far wall. Its amber eyes remained fixed on Williams, but its posture suggested calculated withdrawal rather than aggression. "Where's it going?" the ranger at the door whispered. The lion stopped beside a tall metal cabinet and did something that made Malik's blood run cold. It pressed its shoulder against the cabinet and pushed. The heavy unit scraped across the concrete floor, revealing a section of wall that looked different from the rest. "What in tarnation?" James breathed. The wall section wasn't wall at all. It was painted metal sheeting covering what appeared to be a hidden door. Fresh scratches around the edges suggested it had been opened recently and frequently. Williams swore in that same foreign language and swung his rifle away from the lion toward the concealed entrance. "Nobody moves." But footsteps were already approaching from behind the hidden door. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. The metal sheeting swung inward, revealing a tunnel entrance lit by battery-powered work lights. 3 men in combat fatigues emerged, weapons drawn. Not Tanzanian uniforms. Their insignia were unfamiliar, their faces pale beneath Kevlar helmets. They moved with the efficiency of professional soldiers, taking positions to cover every angle of the room. The lion backed against the examination table, trapped between multiple armed groups. Its breathing had accelerated, but it remained silent, golden eyes tracking each new threat. "Williams," the lead soldier said in heavily accented English, "you were supposed to eliminate the asset quietly. The situation became complicated." "Evidently." The soldier's gaze swept the room, taking in Malik, James, and the lion. "The local military knows about the facility. We have perhaps 10 minutes before they breach the tunnel." Malik's mouth went dry. "What facility?" Williams ignored him, speaking directly to the soldier. "The animal needs to be transported immediately." "Impossible. The operation is compromised." The soldier raised his weapon toward the lion. "We terminate and withdraw." That's when Malik understood. The hidden door, the tunnel, the foreign soldiers. This veterinary station had been built directly above some kind of underground installation. The lion hadn't just been scheduled for elimination, it had been bait to draw someone here. "You've been using my clinic as a cover," he said. Williams finally looked at him directly. "Your clinic was chosen because of its isolation and your reputation for treating dangerous animals. We needed somewhere that troublesome lions would naturally be brought. For what purpose?" The soldier with the rifle stepped closer to the lion, which pressed itself against the examination table with nowhere left to retreat. "Biological research requires fresh specimens with specific behavioral profiles." The clinical language couldn't disguise what he was describing. They'd been capturing lions for medical experimentation, using Malik's rescue work as a front to identify suitable test subjects. Outside, Colonel Mwalimu shouted another warning. Heavy equipment rumbled closer, armored vehicles positioning for assault. "How many?" Malik's voice cracked as he spoke. "How many lions have you taken?" 17 over the past 6 months, Williams said. all classified as troublesome animals, all officially eliminated by wildlife management. James sank against the supply cabinet, his face gray with comprehension. The reports I filed. The behavioral assessments. You used them to select which animals to capture. Animals that showed unusual intelligence or adaptability. Williams checked his watch. Like this one. The lion's golden eyes found Malik across the room. In that gaze, he saw something that made his knees nearly buckle. Recognition, understanding. The animal knew exactly what these men intended, and it was looking at him not with anger or fear, but with something far worse, disappointment. The soldier raised his rifle to execute the lion, but the sound of splintering wood from outside stopped him mid-motion. The Tanzanian military had begun breaching the building. Williams grabbed the soldier's arm. We abort now, or lose everything. The specimen is expendable. Williams turned toward the tunnel entrance. Move! Now! As the 3 foreign soldiers retreated into the hidden passage, Williams paused at the threshold. He looked back at Malik with something that might have been regret. You were never supposed to know, he said. The work we're doing could save human lives. Then he disappeared into the tunnel, leaving Malik alone with James and the lion as Tanzanian soldiers finally crashed through the front door. Tanzanian soldiers flooded through the front door. Assault rifles trained on every corner of the room. Colonel Mwalimu entered behind them, his red beret crisp despite the dust outside. His eyes swept the scene Malik standing beside the examination table. James collapsed against the supply cabinet, and the lion pressed into the corner. Where are they? Mwalimu demanded in English. Gone. Malik nodded toward the hidden tunnel entrance. Through there. 2 soldiers immediately moved to secure the passage, flashlights cutting through the darkness beyond the concealed door. The tunnel stretched deeper than their beams could reach, disappearing into the earth beneath the veterinary station. Mwalimu studied the lion, which remained motionless except for the rapid rise and fall of its chest. This is the animal they were after. One of many. The words tasted like ash in Malik's mouth. They've been using my clinic to identify targets. 17 lions over 6 months. For what purpose? James raised his head from his hands. His voice came out hollow. Medical experiments. Biological research. They said it could save human lives. The colonel's expression hardened. At what cost? The question hung in the air as the soldiers continued to pour through the tunnel entrance. Their voices echoed from underground chambers, reporting the discovery of laboratory equipment, holding cages, and computer terminals. Malik approached the lion slowly, his hands visible and empty. The animal watched his approach but didn't retreat further. Up close, he could see the fresh sutures holding cleanly, no signs of infection despite the stress of recent hours. You knew, he said quietly to the lion. Somehow, you knew what they wanted. The animal's amber eyes tracked his movement as he knelt beside the examination table. For a moment, they simply regarded each other, man and predator, both betrayed by the same system. Dr. Okoro, Colonel Mwalimu said, we need your full cooperation in documenting this operation. You'll have it. Malik's hand hovered inches from the lion's flank, not quite touching, but close enough to feel the warmth radiating through golden fur. But first, this animal needs proper medical care. It will be relocated to a secure wildlife preserve. No. The word came out harder than Malik intended. He's been through enough captivity for one lifetime. James struggled to his feet, using the supply cabinet for support. Malik, be reasonable. Where else can he go? He can't survive in the wild with those injuries. Watch me prove you wrong. But even as Malik spoke the words, the weight of his complicity crushed down on him. 17 lions, captured because he'd been too trusting, too eager to believe in the goodness of others. His reputation for saving animals had been weaponized to identify the most intelligent, most adaptable specimens for experimentation. Dr. Okoro, Colonel Mwalimu said gently. You could not have known. I should have questioned more, asked harder questions about where the troublesome lion reports were coming from. Malik's voice cracked. I made it easy for them. The lion shifted position, pressing closer to the examination table. Its golden fur was matted with dried blood and dirt from the pit. The bandages around its legs stained dark, a living testament to Malik's failure to protect what he claimed to love. This isn't on you, James said, but his own voice carried the weight of shame. William showed me credentials, official documentation, government seals, because we wanted to believe. Malik stood up, his legs unsteady. Because it was easier than questioning authority. Colonel Mwalamu's radio crackled with reports from the underground facility, computer drives, research files, evidence of animal trafficking spanning multiple countries. The scope of the operation was becoming clear. Dr. Okoro, your cooperation helped us discover this network. Without your rescue efforts, 17 lions are dead because of my rescue efforts. The words came out like broken glass. Every report I filed, every behavioral assessment James documented, we handed them a shopping list for their experiments. Malik moved to the supply cabinet, his hands shaking as he gathered medical supplies. The familiar routine of preparing medications felt hollow now, meaningless. How many other lions had he treated with the same careful attention, only to watch them disappear into William's system? The lion watched him work, amber eyes never leaving his face. In that steady gaze, Malik saw not accusation but something worse: understanding. The animal knew he'd been betrayed by the very people he'd trusted to protect him. What happens now? James asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Malik prepared a syringe of antibiotics, his movements mechanical. Now we count the cost. As he approached the lion with the medication, memories flooded back: other lions, other rescues. How many times had Williams arrived with perfect timing? How many animals had disappeared after being classified as problematic? The injection went smoothly into the lion's flank. The animal barely flinched, as if pain had become a constant companion. When Malik stepped back, he noticed something that made his stomach lurch: fresh dirt under his fingernails, dirt that matched the soil composition from the underground facility. He looked at James, who was staring at his own hands with the same horrified recognition. They hadn't just been unwitting accomplices, they'd been inside the facility before, but when? Malik stared at the dirt under his fingernails, his mind racing through fragmented memories. The soil was distinctive reddish clay mixed with limestone, not the sandy earth around the clinic. He'd seen it before, but where James noticed him examining his hands. What is it? This dirt? Malik scraped a sample from under his thumbnail. It's not from here. Colonel Mwalamu looked up from coordinating with his men. What are you suggesting? Dr. Okoro? We've been down there before. The realization hit Malik like cold water. In that facility, but I can't remember when. James backed against the supply cabinet, his face pale. That's impossible. I would remember. Would you? Malik turned to face his partner. How many times have you woken up with gaps in your memory, headaches, feeling like you'd lost time? The question hung in the air between them. James's mouth opened, then closed without sound. From the tunnel entrance, a soldier called out in Swahili, "Colonel, you need to see this." Mwalamu gestured for Malik and James to follow him into the passage. The lion rose from the examination table, limping after them with surprising determination. None of the soldiers moved to stop the animal. The tunnel led to a series of underground chambers carved from solid rock. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows on steel doors and observation windows. The smell hit Malik immediately: disinfectant mixed with something organic and unpleasant. "Laboratory animals," Mwalamu said grimly, pointing to a series of empty cages lining one wall. "Recently occupied." Malik approached the nearest cage. Fresh straw on the floor, Water dishes still damp. Scratch marks on the metal bars told stories of desperation and confinement. The lion moved beside him, sniffing the air with obvious recognition. "He's been here before," Malik whispered. James had stopped at a workstation covered with veterinary instruments. Surgical tools, syringes, monitoring equipment, all familiar brands and models. "This looks like our supply inventory." "Because it is." Colonel Mwalimu held up a shipping manifest. "Medical supplies ordered through your clinic account. Delivered here monthly for the past 6 months. The papers rustled in Malik's trembling hands as he read the invoices, his signature on every page. Purchase orders for experimental drugs he'd never heard of. Equipment specifications for procedures he'd never performed. "I didn't sign these," he said. "The handwriting analysis will determine that." Mwalimu moved to a computer terminal and began accessing files. "But the financial records show payments made from your clinic's account." James had found another workstation, this one containing medical charts. His voice came out strangled. "Malik, these are our patient files, every lion we've treated in the past year." The charts were detailed beyond anything they'd ever maintained: behavioral assessments, genetic markers, psychological profiles. Information that could only have been gathered through extended observation and testing. "Look at the dates," James continued, his finger tracing entries on a computer screen. "These observations were made while the animals were supposedly in our care." Malik leaned over his shoulder, reading the clinical notes, detailed records of each lion's response to stress, intelligence testing, social behavior analysis, the kind of data that required weeks of controlled study. "But our longest treatment period was only 5 days, Malik said. "According to our records," James pulled up more files. "But according to this, every animal spent at least 3 weeks in extended evaluation." The lion had wandered to a specific cage in the far corner, pressing its nose against the bars. Its body language had changed, not fearful, but familiar, like returning to a place it knew well. Mwalimu approached with a thick folder. "Dr. Okoro, we found personnel records. You and Dr. Mitchell are listed as primary research supervisors." "That's impossible." "With detailed performance evaluations, work schedules, salary payments." The colonel opened the folder, revealing photographs of both men in laboratory coats, working with sedated lions on examination tables, all dated within the past 6 months. Malik stared at the photographs. The face was his, the hands performing surgical procedures he didn't remember. James appeared in several images, monitoring equipment while lions underwent various tests. "I don't remember any of this," James whispered. "Memory suppression." A new voice spoke from the tunnel entrance. Dr. Williams emerged from the shadows, no longer carrying a weapon. His hands were zip-tied behind his back. 2 soldiers flanking him. "Selective chemical amnesia. You performed your duties, then forgot." "What duties?" Malik's voice cracked. "Behavioral modification research. Intelligence enhancement protocols. You were developing ways to create more docile, controllable wild animals." Williams smiled without warmth. "Your expertise in veterinary medicine made you invaluable." The lion had turned from the cage to watch Williams with laser intensity, its lips pulled back slightly, revealing white fangs. "Every rescue mission was carefully orchestrated," Williams continued. "We'd set the traps, tip you off to the location, then use your natural compassion to bring the animals here voluntarily." "For what purpose?" Mwalimu demanded. "Military applications. Imagine lions that could be trained like dogs, predators that would attack on command but remain docile around their handlers." Williams' gaze fixed on the lion. "This one was our most successful subject." The words hit Malik like a physical blow. He looked at the lion, remembering its unusual behavior, the trust, the cooperation, the almost human intelligence in its eyes. "You turned him into a weapon," he breathed. "We turned him into a tool." Williams's smile widened. "And you helped us do it." The lion took one step toward Williams, then another, but as it moved, Malik noticed something that made his blood freeze. The animal's eyes had changed. The warm amber was gone, replaced by something cold and mechanical. And when it looked at Malik now, there was no recognition at all. The lion stopped 3 feet from Williams, its mechanical gaze shifting between the bound researcher and the soldiers. Malik watched in horror as the animal's posture changed, no longer the protective stance he'd grown familiar with, but something calculating and cold. "Command, Protocol, Alpha 7, Williams said quietly. The lion's ears flicked forward at the words. Its muscles tensed, but instead of attacking Williams, it turned toward Colonel Mwalimu and his men. The transformation was immediate and terrifying, from wounded animal to predatory machine. "Stand down," Mwalimu ordered his soldiers, but they were already raising their rifles. "Wait." Malik stepped between the lion and the soldiers, his hands raised. "Don't shoot him. He's not in control of this." The lion's cold eyes fixed on him. For a moment, neither moved. Then something flickered in those amber depths, a brief flash of recognition, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "The conditioning isn't perfect," Williams said, his voice carrying a note of scientific curiosity. "Emotional bonds can sometimes override the programming." Malik knelt slowly, never breaking eye contact with the lion. "I know you're still in there, friend. I know you remember." The animal's head tilted slightly, that mechanical coldness wavering. Its breathing had changed, no longer the controlled rhythm of a programmed weapon, but the rapid pants of a frightened creature. "The memory suppression drugs wear off gradually," James said from behind the computer terminal. "According to these files, the effects can be reversed with the right treatment." "Too late," Williams replied. "The facility is compromised. Protocol requires termination of all assets." As if responding to his words, the lion's posture shifted again back to that predatory stance, but this time, instead of focusing on the soldiers, it turned toward Williams himself. "Override command," Williams said quickly. "Alpha 7-7. The lion didn't respond to the command. It took another step toward the bound researcher, lips pulling back to reveal white fangs. "The programming is breaking down," Malik realized. "He's remembering what you did to him." Williams backed against the wall, his face pale. "That's impossible. The conditioning protocols were designed by people who never understood what they were dealing with." Malik rose slowly, keeping his movements calm and deliberate. "You can't program out 17 years of wild instinct." The lion was close enough to Williams now that its breath fogged the researcher's glasses. Those amber eyes had warmed again, no longer mechanical but filled with something far more dangerous: recognition and rage. "Dr. Okoro," Colonel Mwalimu said quietly, "can you control the animal?" "He's not an animal anymore," Malik replied, "and he never should have been controlled in the first place." The lion's massive paw pressed against Williams's chest, pinning him to the wall. The researcher's breathing came in short, panicked gasps. "Please," Williams whispered. "I was following orders. The research was for the greater good." The lion's other paw rose, claws extended. For a moment, it seemed certain that Williams would die in this underground chamber, torn apart by one of his own creations. Then the lion looked back at Malik. In that gaze, Malik saw not the cold calculation of a weapon, nor the blind fury of a wild predator, but something else entirely. Choice. The animal was asking permission not to kill, but to show mercy. "Let him go," Malik said softly. "He's not worth it." The lion held Williams against the wall for another long moment, then stepped back. The researcher slumped to the ground, gasping for air. "The programming really is broken," James observed, studying the computer files. "All the conditioning, all the behavioral modification it's reverting. Because love is stronger than fear, Malik said, approaching the lion slowly. And trust is stronger than control. The animal turned to him, amber eyes warm again with recognition. When Malik extended his hand, the lion pressed its massive head against his palm, not the gesture of a weapon or a pet, but of an equal choosing companionship. Colonel Mwalimu gestured to his men. "Secure, Dr. Williams. We'll need extensive debriefings about this program." As the soldiers led Williams away, he called back over his shoulder, "You have no idea what you've unleashed. Dr. Okoro, that animal is still dangerous." "No," Malik replied, his hand resting on the lion's golden mane. "He's free." The lion limped beside him as they made their way back through the tunnel toward the veterinary clinic. Behind them, soldiers continued to document the underground facility evidence of a program that had tried to turn wild creatures into instruments of war. But in the afternoon, sunlight streaming through the clinic windows, as Malik checked the lion's healing wounds one more time, something else became clear. The real question wasn't whether the programming had failed. It was what the lion would choose to do with his freedom now that he remembered everything they had taken from him. 6 months after the underground facility was exposed, Malik stood in his rebuilt veterinary clinic watching the lion, now called Django, move freely through the expanded enclosure. The animal's leg had healed completely, leaving only a thin scar beneath the golden fur. More importantly, the behavioral conditioning had faded entirely, replaced by something Malik had never expected to see. Choice. Each morning, Django positioned himself by the clinic entrance, greeting visitors with calm dignity. Children from nearby villages came to observe from a respectful distance, learning about wildlife conservation. The lion seemed to understand his role as an ambassador, never showing aggression despite his size and power. James had stayed too, working to establish better protocols for wildlife rescue operations. Together, they created a system requiring multiple independent verifications before any animal could be classified as problematic. "He's teaching us," James observed. Watching Django interact gently with a group of young students through the fence, Malik nodded, his hand resting on the warm metal of the enclosure gate, a gate that remained unlocked by choice, not force. "Sometimes the ones we think we're saving end up saving us instead." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the savannah, and Django settled beside the clinic entrance, golden eyes watching over his chosen territory with quiet contentment. This work is inspired by themes of wildlife conservation and redemption, created solely for entertainment purposes. The story does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior toward humans or animals. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real people, organizations, or events is purely coincidental.